And now I'd like to turn it over to someone who has been outspoken on this issue, the junior senator from Kentucky, Rand Paul. Thank you.
All right. This is sort of a bizarre setup. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to stand here or stand here. I think I'm going to stand here, but if I stand up there, I can actually see my notes. I lost my vision somewhere along the way when I got old. So I think I was picked because I was undecided about Syria. They wanted somebody to be objective and who wasn't quite committed, kind of, going in the wind. So anyway, I don't want to prejudge the debate, but I thought we'd poll the audience to begin with. How many people think and agree with the president's plan that we should bomb Syria? Uh-oh. Bad news for whoever's on that side of the debate. I think something extraordinary happened this week or last week in Washington. What I think is extraordinary about it is that we actually had a debate. The president came to Congress and did what I think is his constitutional duty. He came to ask for authorization. Now, this shouldn't be that extraordinary, but in our country, often it is. Presidents have often gone to war without any authority. Now, some will say, oh, but it's just a small war. It's not going to be a big war, just a little war. And then others will say, well, it's not really a war because there won't be boots on the ground. I guess really when the Japanese attacked us at Pearl Harbor, that wasn't war. You say that, well, heck no, that was World War II. Well, you're damn right it was World War II. We were attacked with planes. The Japanese didn't paratroop in. We never saw a Japanese soldier, but we damn sure were at war with them. You don't have to have troops on the ground. It's not war only if you have troops on the ground. But it was an extraordinary thing. We actually had a debate, and even more extraordinary, Congress debated, the pundits debated, the people debated, and the people said, hell no. We don't see an American interest. The problem with foreign policy is that most people think that the debate begins and ends when they say our national security is threatened. Well, that's a conclusion. That's not a debate. That's the beginning of the debate. So the debate has to be, when should that occur? And so what I would like to imagine, and what I would like everyone to imagine, is that the initiation of war, other than a few exceptions, that's the way it should occur. We debate whether our vital interests, we debate whether our national security interests are threatened. You can't just say they are. You have a debate, and it's not always clear-cut. You have to prove to me or prove to the other side that our national security is threatened. It's not enough just to say our national security is threatened. Well, what is our national security? That is a debate, and that's what we vote on. What are the exceptions to that? Well, I would think when we're being attacked or we're imminently being threatened, we have the chance to repulse an attack whether we have a debate or not, but we should go shortly thereafter. After we were attacked at Pearl Harbor, within 24 hours we debated and we voted unanimously. I think the same would have occurred when we were attacked on 9/11. But because in Syria we're not quite clear who the good guys and who the bad guys, or which of the bad guys are the worst bad guys, is probably a better way to put it, we ought to have a debate. Is our American interest? Is there an American interest? Is there an American ally? And I've asked these questions. If we bomb Assad, are the chemical weapons more or less likely to be used? I think it's an honest debate. I really don't know, and nobody knows the answer. But what are the chances that chemical weapons get used on Tel Aviv? I frankly think they're a greater chance if we bomb Assad than not. What are the chances that the chemical weapons fall into the hands of Al-Qaeda or the terrorists? More or less if we bomb Assad and destabilize him? I think more. What about refugees? They say refugees, 500,000 have gone into Jordan, 500,000 have gone into Lebanon. I ask the question, if we bomb Assad, are there going to be more refugees or less refugees? I think they'll double and triple. The whole damn country will flee when we start bombing. So I think that there is really a debate that should occur, and it should always occur. Imagine that it always occurred. We would probably be involved in less war. We would always debate whether or not our national security interests are. The president said this when he ran for office, and it was one of the things I admired about him. He said, no president should unilaterally go to war without the authority of Congress. So recently I had lunch with us, and I asked him, I said, well, are you going to abide by the verdict of Congress? So what the Constitution says, we initiate war. And he kind of hemmed and he hawed, and he said, well, and actually to his credit, I think he kind of indicated he probably would, but he didn't want to be explicit. That's probably the best way to characterize his answer. That's sort of what John Kerry's kind of indicated. Yeah, probably, but no guarantees. But the thing is, the Constitution is explicit about this. Madison said that history demonstrates, or the Constitution supposes what history demonstrates, that the executive is the branch most likely to go to war. Therefore, we kept that power and we gave it. We vested that power in the Congress, in the legislature. But that's the initiation of war. And people ask me, do you ever agree with John McCain? I say, well, he's kind of an irascible, and I can't use the next descriptor, but the thing is we do actually get along, and I respect him. I think he's a war hero. He spent 5-6 years in the Hanoi Hilton, and he deserves respect for his service. And the one thing I actually do agree with him on is the Constitution gives initiation of war to Congress, but execution he doesn't. So when many conservatives say, we don't want 535 generals, I actually have some sympathy for that argument, and I kind of agree. So I actually tried to convince him and some of the others that wanted to be involved in Syria that they were voting against their own understanding of the presidency. Most of them believe in an expansive understanding of the presidency, that the president executes a war and should be limited. I kind of tend to agree. We decide to go to war or not to go to war. But once we go to war, do we want it just to be a little bitty small war? Just bombs, no boots? What happens, do you really want to limit yourself in war? We've been talking as we came out here about some of the ways we decide when we go to war. And there was the Weinberger doctrine. You may hear more about that. As one of the authors is here of the not Weinberger, the one who helped Weinberger, right? But the thing is what he talked about is the American public has to be behind it. We have to have our vital interests threatened, our national security threatened, which is a debate. That's not a conclusion. We never know that until we debate and discuss and decide as a people, is our national security threatened? You have to have the people behind you, but you have to decide to win. I think Colin Powell said the same thing. When we are at war, we go in with overwhelming force. We go in to win. But the president has said repeatedly in Syria, his goal is stalemate. He doesn't quite put it that way. That's my characterization. But they don't see a military solution. They see a negotiated settlement. They want to degrade Assad enough that he'll negotiate. And they argue we're getting to the diplomatic solution because they threatened force. I don't know. Maybe they did. Russians say that's not why they're negotiating, but you can't always trust the Russians. Well, yeah, very rarely. But the thing is that why are they negotiating? Well, another argument is they're negotiating because some people like myself said we have to have a debate and you shouldn't bomb a month ago. If you bombed a month ago, we wouldn't be at negotiations. Are negotiations better than war? I think so. Why? Well, one, because you're not at war. But the other reason negotiations are better is that if you were to bomb Assad, we're not going to bomb the chemical weapons. We're not going to take them away from him, and we're not going to kill him. So he will, once the bombing's done, Assad will still be there, and so will the chemical weapons. If diplomacy works, and I can't guarantee it's going to, but if diplomacy works, the chemical weapons will be gone. That will be a huge step forward. Will they still be killing each other? Probably. But the chemical weapons being gone would be good for Israel, good for Jordan, good for America, and good for Turkey. We do have an interest in trying to make that happen. What I would say is that as you move forward, if you remember nothing else about this, and I'm not sure I've said that much that needs to be remembered, but remember this: when someone says our national security is threatened, that's the beginning of the debate, not the end. And the only way you can come to a conclusion as to whether your national security is threatened is you have to have a debate and you have to persuade someone that it's threatened, because it's a conclusion and it may not be obvious to everyone. You have to give examples of why you think American interests are there. That's why it's been so murky in Syria, because you have people on both sides and there's no, to me, clear-cut factual basis for saying one or the other will be an American ally if they win. My hope is that when we look at war, when you look at war, when people go to war, that we go to war reluctantly. that our philosophy of war is that it's a last resort, not the first resort. War's not a good thing. You know, Eisenhower said, "I hate war like only a soldier who's lived and breathed and fought war, the stupidity, the banality, the futility of war." Coming from Eisenhower, who got us out of the Korean War, who had a reluctance and a reticence, it isn't that we don't have to go to war sometimes, it's that we shouldn't be eager for war. Thank you very much.